Melamo, Sukiko Amoring.
Monique.
My name is Allison.
George Hamilton.
Lydia Sullivan.
Katie Thompson.
11 years old.
22.
14.
31.
I am 24 years old.
Female.
Male.
Female.
My gender, I guess I identify as woman or female, depending on the context.
Female.
Gender queer. So queer. They, them, and theirs.
She.
Her.
She, her, it, they, them.
She and her.
Typically, I just go by she and her, but any respectable pronouns are okay with me.
He and him.
I think of a spectrum, like a rainbow, a gradient, lots of different kinds of people, bodies, shapes, sizes, preferences.
I think of someone who's taken steps to changing their gender.
I think of a gender identity that goes beyond the binary of man, woman, male, female. Transgresses gender.
I think it's somebody who's either identifies with both genders, identifies with no gender, or is identifying with an opposite with a gender that they with a gender preference of their choice as opposed to one that they're just born with.
Someone who had a sex change.
They get changed to a different gender.
Yeah, I mean, I also identify as trans, and so especially when I had shorter hair, I'd get harassed verbally, or it's not as brutal as necessarily being beaten or specific violence, but there's always this kind of atmosphere. I don't know how to explain, just you walk into a place and when people can't immediately categorize you, the way they react, moving away from you or giving you kind of glares or just, I don't know.
I've seen people get bullied for not owning up to their gender or their perceived gender, and I've also seen a lot of confusion or misunderstanding around people while they're going through the process of changing their gender.
I haven't personally seen firsthand, but I have a lot of friends who identify as transgender that have shared that they have been bullied or harassed. But yeah, I can't think of a time where I've actually witnessed that in person.
I've never really known anyone who is transgendered in my school, so I haven't seen any bullying happen, but I've heard of many cases of transgender people being bullied.
Well, these kids were making fun of him because he had woman parts, and that's not fair because he is who he is, and so just because of that they make fun of him, and it's not fair.
I have quite a few friends who identify as trans. I think because, or I don't know if it's because of their identity being trans, but I feel like those friends that I have that identify as transgender, they tend to be more open-minded and aware of ideas of gender and sexuality, and we've had more conceptual conversations relating to those concepts and those social identities.
Yes, I have quite a few trans friends. I've gone through transitions, and by that I mean like physical transitions. It's been an interesting process, meeting people with one name and one pronoun, and seeing them in the process of like starting hormones or getting surgery, or like changing their appearance or their names to match like how they feel. It's been an interesting process, but it's nice. I'm really glad, and I've been able to support some of my friends through that.
Yes. I would say that it never affected the relationship I had with them, because it's not something that truly matters to me. The first transgendered person I knew, it was definitely a learning experience because I was a young age, but it definitely readied me for other situations to come and taught me that even if you're a woman becoming a man or a man becoming a woman, you're still the person I met, regardless of that one identity.
Yes. I don't really believe that it affected the relationship at all if you can just kind of learn to like them for who they are as opposed to trying to fit them into a gender norm. You'll be fine. And you can have plenty of normal relationships with a transgender person. That there's no real difference between a transgender person and somebody who identifies with one gender, the gender that they were born with. There are a lot of incarceration efforts with transgender people, arresting trans women on the spot, assuming that they're sex workers, arresting trans men and their rights in prisons. Trans men usually end up going to female prisons, and trans women usually end up going into men's prisons, and they're not received the proper medical treatment they need for surgery. So not only just a surgery to change their gender, they'll have lack of hormones, which can lead to problems with their health. So it's a denied medicine for them. What's it called? They're being declined basic medical treatment.
The biggest challenge, there are many, but on a human level, I would say just respect and acceptance of one's identity.
Ignorance and miseducation in others and living in the society we live in are the biggest issues for transgender people as well as homosexual people. It's still something that society as a whole doesn't understand or want to accept as something that happens, and I think that it can be, one, really challenging to get the encouragement and to have the ability to want to do something like that knowing the world we live in, but I think it's also really brave and courageous for people to continue. And
I think there's a lot. I think it's complicated because there's so many different layers of the problem, you know? It's not just like homelessness or lack to medical care. They're all tied up together, but I think the most basic is probably just recognition and the constant state of fear and harassment is probably the biggest thing.
Are you a woman?
That's a very good question. We seem to assume that every person is either a man or a woman. But we don't take into account this true scientific value that each person is actually both in varying degrees. Now, this sounds a little evasive, and I don't mean it to be, when in all actuality my only answer to that is that I am more of a woman than I am a man.
I see.
Christine Jorgensen was the first nationally known transgender American. She used her fame to speak out on behalf of transgender people.
Discrimination against people happens all the time, past, present, and future. Some forms of discrimination are worse than others. A common form is gender discrimination. A slightly different form that is uncommon is transgender discrimination, the result of which is devastating. The LGBT community has been discriminated against by society for a long time, not only being treated unfairly, but in some cases violently. One of the first cases of this was Christine Jorgensen. George Jorgensen was a World War II veteran. He traveled to Denmark in 1952 and had treatments and operations to become Christine Jorgensen. From 1952 till her death in 1989, she was treated with cruelty, jokes, and violence. More scary was the murders of Paige Clay, age 23, and Tiffany Gooden, age 19, for being transgendered women. A more recent form of discrimination is by health insurance companies. They exclude treatments to transgendered people to change nature's mistake. Some of the same treatments is given to other people for different health problems. Women with menopause or other problems are given hormone therapy, but this same medicine is not given to transgendered people to help with transgender transition. Mastectomies are given to treat breast cancer, but not for a transgendered person. Many medical experts believe that transgendered people need some of the same preventative care as the non-transgendered, like mammograms, prostate exams, and pelvic exams. Preventative care and more should be covered if a necessity is found by doctors, not insurance companies. Right now, outdated ideas, misunderstandings, and prejudice keep transgendered people from getting medical and mental health care that would make them healthy, happy, and safe, and whole people. Imagine if you, your parents, family members, or friends were treated this way. Transgendered people are mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, just like anyone else. Things are starting to get better. Some insurance companies have figured out that the cost of treating transgendered and non-transgendered people are almost the same. Others have done studies that say the proper treatments can help cut down the risk of suicide, drug abuse, and for better outcomes for treatment for HIV and AIDS. Slowly, the insurance companies are leaving stereotypes and discrimination behind them. Some of the opposing argument is that people think transgender people should have these treatments because it's different if you have necessity. If you have cancer and you don't get treatments, you die. But if you're transgendered and you don't get the treatments, you will not change gender and continue to live. The opposing argument is wrong because if transgendered people won't be happy, they can't get the treatments and protest and probably kill themselves. We need to support everyone, no matter who they are.